What's that? It's not a Sunday. It's not the every other Sunday. It's a bonus episode.
That's right. It's the first bonus episode of the podcast.
And who better to do it for than our man Saint Expedite? And who better to have on for it than Mahigan? He's back.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my goodness! Listen, we've been stewing on this for a while. I mean, people know even from our posts on Instagram that we're hanging out in person quite often. And this has been brewing for a long time coming because you're one of the only people that we really connected with on a deep level that definitely see Saint Expedite as more than just the guy you give a pound cake to in exchange for having something get sped up.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and not that that's uncommon, right? There's plenty of people out there who are working him in many different contexts and syncretisms and so on, especially in Latin America, and in France and in Italy and the Philippines and so on. But like specifically among like the general spheres of people that we hang out with, like he's people's last defense. He's kind of like, oh, if things didn't work out, you go to him, and he's reliable that way, right? It's great. He doesn't ask for much, and what he does ask for is very fair. I too would like cake and flowers and to be told that I'm great in public. But I really appreciate that we've all been trying to get a little bit more out there on how it is that we came to work with this incredible saint. And I think this being his feast, it's only appropriate that we drop the episode now. So happy feast of Saint Expedite, coming to you right from the homes of the three of us, with Cutting Into Man team. Here with Frightful Howls and with our lovely and impeccable, amazing witch friend, Mahigan.
I am an avowed Expedite evangelist, so I'm super happy to be doing this episode.
Evangelist, exegete, just a town crier, holding the banner with the little, many like Matryoshka dolls of Expedite, the little one. I have one next to my computer that I put in front of me whenever I need to get my shit together and I have to actually do something for work and like not procrastinate. It's like I put her in front of me and he just stares at me and I'm just like, oh God, you're right now.
Just like, staring into your soul.
Literally, yeah. And then I have like the medium one that's for another thing, and then I have the big one where he's trying to. He's got like the don't you ever come talking to me or my son or my son's son ever again, unless you bring all three of us cake. Which we do. He's been such a great ally to all of us. He's been integral to a lot of our work publicly. And one of the spirits that just loves being spoken about. So we can actually talk about him. Because there's so many that like I'll whisper about to you guys in private, but never on air and never even on Instagram. Like I will never post about that spirit or that I have a connection with them. And there's some that, even among friends to share their name or to share that I have an affiliation with them would be a taboo. But Expedite, he's like, bring it on.
He loves the spotlight.
Don't we all?
Be not alarmed at the frightful howls which you may hear. It's Sfinga, Salt, and bonus episode key.
just the hammer at home. Because we did say this would happen sometimes, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we didn't promise it would happen often, but I think some saint days, like some feasts, it's appropriate to drop it, especially if there's something cool happening like this, which is we're joined, as we mentioned, with Mahigan Saint-Pierre this time for an amazing Beaky and Kitchen Toad collab.
Hello, hello.
I know, it's crazy. I mean, we've been collabing since the dawn of time, it feels like. Like every time we visit each other, we're always doing something behind the scenes. We're like doing a ritual, we're like working through a grimoire. It's like we're like calculating the planetary hours and getting our shit together last minute. Like Key's driving us around in his car haphazardly to grab all the groceries and the ingredients we need to like make a whole feast. We're like making candles and powders for each other, but not like something this public. In the sense that we're also selling something. In this case, it's you two. And so Salt and I have the immense privilege of being able to kick back and watch it all take place. Especially because, I mean, we'll get into that in a little bit, but like the origins of how this came to be is something that all of us have been involved with to some degree or another. And Salt, I would say you're the one that like works with Saint Expedite the least, but you're the one who's like really had the most like bird's eye view of this whole thing as it's come together, especially seeing me come before like our house's shrine and just grovel at times, and other times fight him and, waft the pound cake in front of him and be like, you want this, and then eat it in front of him when it's not happening fast enough, and like arguing, crying, falling down the stairs, all that stuff. And so you've seen the beauty of everything that this cult has to offer, without even touching the fact that he also has other witchcraft syncretisms and things that are perhaps best not spoken about out loud too much for me. But I do love that you're sitting here being just like Mr. Speedy,
Mr. Quick. Yeah, he's Mr. Fast. He's Mr. Fast because and I think that's it's always been really fun to watch Singer and Keith, for example, head over to a local building in public and just leaving a pound cake there with a lit candle inside it and walking away. And that someone's going to come in later, they're going to see that and be like, oh, there's a cake with a candle inside it on my wall.
Whose birthday is that?
It's Saint Expedite's, of course, and that's why we're here today.
Yeah, literally every day is Expedite Day, and because it's his death day, and we're partying nevertheless, because that's a good thing to do when someone's remembering someone's death, especially if you want to make them into mighty dead that can't quite fully rest, which is the thesis of many a book on the topic of saint veneration in the Catholic and Orthodox traditions. Speaking of which, right, everyone, I know I joke all the time about calendars, but Saint Expedite is like one of the saints that like my parents, like my flesh and blood family, will actually venerate fully, even though he's not like Orthodox, as it were, because it all happened with seeing me petition him when we lived together. And my dad was just like, oh my God, he works fast. I like him. And so my mom and I bake cakes for him. Like we've gone on dressed like red candles together. She's given me petitions in our language that I've, recited to him and put under his statue and so on. So like he's actually there. And when I went to New Orleans, my dad's one request was that I bring him back a little Expedite statue. He would say to me in our language, I want the little fast man that's Catholic. So in the honorable
Catholic man.
Oh yeah, and I got him a very tiny one that I washed right in that font next to his statue.
Nice,
the famous one, right? So it's been wonderful. He's a household name now. So welcome Saint Expedite to possibly the first ever Slava that was held in your honor by anyone in my ancestry. So it's absolutely wonderful. Let's get some quick housekeeping out of the way before we get too into it. Remember to check us out at twitter.com/frightfulhowls and patreon.com/thefrightfulhowls. We have a bonus episode every month created by and for our patrons. All the questions that they have, from the month, we answer them as best as we can and get a little bit more rowdy and even more chaotic than we usually do. It's very drinks are flowing if it's not Lent, which it still is for me. Womp womp, and we get a little rowdy, yeah, for sure. And then we have Salt's Fantastic Almanac, which, as we mentioned last episode, this month has actually predicted a whole new strain of bovine flu. Thank you, Salt, for terrifying us with your accuracy. A monthly live occult book club / sometimes movie club that we're voting on right now, where we discuss in a live Zoom with our patrons some text that we're going through. We're preparing to do Thomas Johnson's the Graveyard Wanderers to get our necromancy on. And of course, we have show notes for every episode and much more. And remember, if you can't support us on Patreon, please do remember to give us a like, a rating, and a review on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, wherever you're listening to us. It helps us fight the demiurge of the algorithm. We also all have services. Key offers personalized coaching in magic and mediumship, sorcery for hire, readings, custom talismans, oils, tools, full service shit. You want it, he's got it. I offer Balkan Favmancy readings in Glidan Yupasu, so come get your beans read. And Salt offers anything astrological, be it horary. If you need an election real bad for some planet in some sign to make a gemstone talisman, hit him up. Or a natal, of course. And you can hit us up on social media. Finally, all three of us are there. I'm Dragon Cunning. Salt is Salt CNC. And Key is barnowl.key. That's what the B stands for on the Instagram. And here's Mahi. People know you. I think if they listen to us, they probably listen to you. And you have an amazing new podcast too.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I started my podcast a couple of weeks ago. It's called Sat Upon a Toadstool. I talk about a bunch of things pertaining to the occult community and witchcraft and magic and all that kind of stuff. And I also do a monthly Q&A on Spotify and an almanac that is an audio format over on Patreon, where I talk a bit about feast days and celebrations and just the general tides of stuff. I talk a bit about like plants that I'm looking forward to working with and different material that I'm collecting and stuff like that. So it's very much a personal calendar of sorts that is developing over the year.
And this is not your first time on our podcast. You were on episode 18 on French Canadian folklore, where you christened Key as the lumberjack Bichon.
Yes. And I believe that was like my first big official foray into podcasting. I don't think I'd be doing my podcast if you guys hadn't like shown me how much of a professional yapper I could be.
Saint Yapspedite over here. Yeah, that's what the Saint-Pierre stands for. Amazing. I love it. I'm really excited. I listened to yours and I imagine that you're right here with us, hanging out as always. And I just love I really do think of you as just like, you know, that like frog plushie I got you when you were last here. I was like that with like a headset is what I'm imagining, or like a little mic, you know, on like one of those like big, toadstools. Yeah, exactly.
It was such a lovely experience, and I love chatting with you guys always. If you want to see a little bit more about me, I do run a shop called Kitchen Toad, and you can find me on Instagram at Kitchen Toad, where I offer wares and services and all kinds of sorceress stuff. You can also find me over on patreon.com/Kitchen Toad, where I offer a monthly community ritual to members of the Hawthorne tier. I also offer the Almanac, like I already mentioned. We're doing a book club now. We've got a Discord. We're investing a lot of time on the Patreon this year, so I'm posting a lot about different rituals and recipes and stuff like that if you'd like to check that out.
You've been a huge source of inspiration for us and a great advocate for us to expand our Patreon, which we'll be doing shortly after the anniversary of the podcast. And I'm really, really glad that you're also doing an almanac and you're also doing a podcast. Like, we'll be frequent guests on each other's, because one of our rules for having guests on Frightful Howls is they have to be a personal friend. Because there's just so many excellent occult podcasts already out there that are interviewing people, and like the bulk of their content is interviews, right? So if you want to hear someone explain themselves and what their magic is like, you know, there's people doing that much better, you know, out there. But we want to have our kind of thing where we have, you know, these episodes that go into folklore and these kind of more deep dives of folklore and magical applications. We have ones that are practicums where we talk about, you know, troubleshooting magic and actually going into like how to do certain things and from our own experiences. And then we'll have a guest feature where we just talk, and it has to, the rapport has to be real, right? You know, it can't just be somebody that we are pulling on, especially given that we really want to have this kind of intimate environment. And so, like I said, there's amazing podcasts out there that are doing great interviews, and we love listening to them. For ours, we like the idea of featuring specifically friends. And I love that you're somebody we've done a lot of magic with. Like, you know, no matter over the years, like we've all visited each other and we've actively done a lot of sorcery together. And sometimes it's really revolved around Saint Expedite. There's been a few times when you've come over and like your first day at my place, you're like, I owe him a pound cake. Like,
yes, twice now.
Yeah, twice. Yeah. And then I'm just like, I just literally made a pound cake. So please, help yourself. Yeah,
you were so like, ready.
Like I had it ready. It was like a charcuterie board for spirits that was already unveiling in my kitchen. And then one time, you know, we just pop one in the oven immediately. So it's been great. I think with Saint Expedite, something that has really struck me was that way back then, this was in 2022, Key arrived, he was visiting me, and like our first day, basically, he had already landed. I had picked him up from the airport. We were hanging out at my place. We were near my Expedite shrine, like where we were sitting. And I was like, you know, I really want to make this powder with him. I've been getting this whole recipe. I want to make like a fast luck powder that, you know, manifests things today. You can add a pinch of it to anything to speed it up and so on. I was like, you know, you're here for a week. When do you want to make it? Like today, tomorrow? What are you thinking? And right when I said that, I felt that I had just fucked us. Because I said, do you want to do it today or tomorrow in front of this man? And like, you just see the lens flare. Literally, did somebody say today? And of course, the limp plastic or whatever crow underneath his foot on that particular statue on the plaster, I was like, oh god, like I can see it. So of course we went and immediately got it was cold that time too, right? It was like in March, it was freezing here in Southern Ontario. So we booked it. Got everything that we needed, baked a pound cake, and put it together. One of the kind of famous moments from that particular episode is like we basically did everything, and I felt something was a bit off. and one of my spirits came in and was like sniffing around at the bowl we were making the powder in, like it's like the mother batch. And I was like, there's something is missing. And the spirit like says through me to Key, taste it. And like without any hesitation, he instantly like puts some on his finger and like licks it. And he just goes like, it needs this. And so we go and put that in, and it's perfect. And so now that began the whole cycle of you tasting everything, including Mahi's oils and things that we bought from you to support your shop and everything. Like it's just like I see this man going like,
Exactly.
I'd be eating my own oils too, honestly.
mm-hmm.
I'm invoking the chemist of old, where it's like, oh, what's this salt? Let me give it a little lick. And I'm like, very nice.
Very nice.
Speaking of chemists, isn't today Mary the Egyptian's feast day?
Mm-hmm. You got
Happy
my
birthday, Miss Ma'am.
Oh yeah, I've got my oils brewing up today as part of that. Shout out to the ladies of alchemy. You can find a talk that I gave on them at a Salem Witch Fest a couple years ago now, but it's still up in the archive. So
Yeah, indeed. It's such a good talk as well.
it was a fun one to put together.
I love that you're a mad scientist. I'm glad that you're not necessarily tasting the mercury and nutmegs, though.
Oh, true.
Unless you want to join Salt's Mighty Dead.
Yeah, right. Oh man, that would be quite the experience, right? Unfortunately, it's a common trope of certain magical metallurgical traditions to be doing so, and it is.
I don't know if
known
I'd
that
call
they
it unfortunate.
makes you really creative, but that creativity is timed.
Oh my god, yeah.
Oh man, but yeah.
Yeah, actually, you mentioning that powder brought me back because I feel like that's one of the first like big synchronicities that we had between our crafts.
Because they're so similar.
Yeah, like literally we were talking about the ingredients that went into them, and like I was just, bro, we have the same recipe.
And it's really funny because honest to God, we never discussed it. Like not once did we go over our recipes. Like we didn't really consult each other on it. Like I knew that you had one, but I never purchased it from you, and I never like necessarily even looked at or discussed with you like what the possible lists were. And we're pretty like open with each other about like what are the basis of some of our materia. Like we've shared some of our more like secretive things amongst each other. Like we're very happy to, like I think that's the thing is like with our friendships is we're like we fund each other's magics. We're like you want to work with a spirit. I know something about them, come over, I'll help you. Like we're very free about that. But it just never occurred to us to even discuss it because I was like, oh, well, let's just make it and see what happens. And then, having seen yours, that you've sent a mutual friend of ours, and you having seen mine, they're basically identical to, I would say like 90%, like with some tweaks, obviously, depending on our individual packs, but it's quite remarkable and they work in the exact same way. So that's one of those things that I find really interesting is like, he be teaching us.
For real. Yeah. I love when like a recipe that you get ends up being similar to another's. And then like you kind of have that, like you smack down the imposter syndrome a little bit,
Yeah, absolutely. And that was even before I visited New Orleans, when I first, I already had some dirt from Our Lady of Guadalupe Church that a friend of mine had collected for me. Directly on his feast and sent it to me from the year before. So I was able to incorporate that into it. And now obviously like we've been there ourselves and we've gotten plenty of things, including the water and so on. So it's been wonderful. Like I think that I came to Saint Expedite specifically the way that many do, right? Which is just finding out his legend, seeing his use in various places online. Obviously the excellent pamphlet from Hodie Press. There's an excellent book on him by Denise Alvarado, which is fantastic and has lots of excellent recipes and so on, all about his uses in root work. And I think that specifically what drew me to him was this. Just the immediacy of it, right? The idea, he's by far not the only saint who died on the day of his conversion. One that obviously is very intimately close to me is the Octistus, right? Who witnessed Cyprian and Justina be martyred and then immediately converted upon seeing the the benevolence of their deaths. But what I think is fascinating about Saint Expedite is he literally has a moment where he's tempted by the devil, who comes to him in the form of a crow and says to him, you can, eventually become a Christian another day, delay your conversion for tomorrow, right? And of course, the Latin for tomorrow, the crow's cry is rendered in English as caw, caw, but in Italian, the sound is more like cra, cra, and the Latin version is cras, cras, which is tomorrow. And so that's why he has Hodie on his cross. He's proclaiming the victory of today over tomorrow, to say, convert today, do the right thing today, like change, make that change today. And that's something that is exceptionally powerful for me. I've studied, his feasts in Brazil and in France and certainly in Armenia and in Turkey and so on. The idea that, he kind of came about through this statue conflation that occurred in Our Lady of Guadalupe is kind of an urban legend. Like, that's really, his cult far predates that moment of when his statue arrived at the church, as like in the second box next to the actual statue of the Virgin that was supposed to come, and of course, because it was labeled Expedite, people assume that was the saint's name, so the legend goes. But this is more of a modern retelling. Interestingly, I find that his syncretic cults are absolutely fascinating. We see through many different places, like in Réunion Island, right, that he's associated with the Hindu goddess Kali, right, with many other kinds of spirits out of Madagascar and India. Certainly, he's associated with many different kinds of issues in Brazil, as well as Orisha, and we obviously have in Trinidad and Tobago a syncretism between him and Papa Bonus from the cult of Obia, is articulated in Nikolai de Matus Friswold's book on Obia. So he's all over the place, and he's associated with these tricksters and these spirits of not just healing quickly, but killing quickly, like being intense, being powerful, being able to slay and to defeat and to promote and to give dramatic overturns of luck. He has this. I would say Mercury is such a perfect symbol for him in terms of not just the planet, but I mean like the actual material. Which is, I think, the fact that you've been doing these Mercury nutmeg amulets, these charms for a few years now, and that they sell out so quickly is also a sign. It's part of a pact that you have with him to make them, right?
Yeah. Every year I make a batch of 13 of them and end up selling 12 and making a little pyramid of each new and improved edition upon his shrine as a little token of continued work and keeping him forever running in his necromantic capacity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to let you guys talk all about this because you have so many awesome things coming out in your collab, including the nutmegs, including Mahigans and yours usual stocks, as well as some brand new things. But before we do, I think we should mention we're just praising him for his ability to do anti-procrastination, that kind of put that fire under your butt, get your things out there now. Literally one of the things that I've noticed in my devotion to him that I can do to satisfy him beyond sharing his name, which this episode is obviously a part of that, beyond doing things for him, beyond laboring for him, right, is actively choosing to do something immediately, right? Like, as in, like, say I've been procrastinating, something that I've been delaying, like something that I've been telling myself, oh, one day I'd love to start building this skill or start, we joke so much about this idea, especially in regards to like languages, which is something that all of us are really passionate about, learning extra languages or other kinds of skills, is the idea that like, oh, but it'll take me so much time. It will take me so much time to even begin to sound like I can hold a conversation, much less appear fluent. It will take me so much time to stop sounding like I'm just hesitating and tripping up over myself, right? And the response is always that, well, time will pass anyway. And you might as well hold the conversation in the language of your choice in 4 years, and then still be thinking, oh, but it'll take so long in 4 years and still be nowhere, right? So that's one of those things is like, one of the things that he really inspires for me is this like no excuses thing. Like I can show my devotion to him every day by choosing to do something that I otherwise would have put off. And that's really helpful for me, especially because I can be disorganized at times. I can be very forgetful. I'm a person with like 10,000 tabs open at all times in my browser. Like I'm researching all these things. I'm reading 5 books at once and then I don't finish them, So like him helping me kind of like finish things, right, has been a huge part of my personal devotion to him. And I would say that, so then why are we talking about the crow? Because in 2022, I made a blog post called Saint-Expedite's Cras powder to kind of follow up on the Hodie powder that I made with Key that I just mentioned. Like the recipes are astonishingly similar to Mahigan's. And one of the things that happened was actually, it was a year prior. It was in 2021 that I was literally outside and just walking, having a normal just chat, with Key on the phone. And I was suddenly struck with like a very profound vision. There was a lot of physical crows that suddenly started swarming me, which isn't unusual because corvids are very sacred to one of my main spirits. But I felt this wasn't that spirit specifically. And I had this vision in which I was overtaken by the sight of holy relics, bones and skin and flesh being picked apart clean by crows. And these birds were like, they weren't just behaving like birds, they were like worms or serpents. They were like burrowing and digging like moles, going through flesh, tunneling through walls, like absolutely ruining the sepulchres and the inner sanctums of this particular vision, right? And every single time I felt a peck, I felt like I had this immense impulse to wait and to delay and to actually savor the delay, to feel excited and relieved at like, oh my God, I don't do this right now. Oh, thank goodness, I don't have to do this now. I can wait. It's like that relief of being like, oh, it's not due tonight after all, or you know what, I don't need to do it tonight because it was, the deadline was moved, that kind of thing. This feeling that like there is a tomorrow, it's a good thing. Isn't that wonderful that I'll live to see it? There's still more time to accomplish things. And this feeling that like, yes, the spirit that I was conjuring didn't show up, but next time they'll show up, and it's okay. I don't have to keep trying to conjure them. I don't have to keep waiting at this crossroads. I can come back another day. Maybe that's what they want from me. Maybe they want to see the effort that I've come every day, but they're not going to come tonight. I should just go home. I should turn back. I should relax. The omens will come. I don't have to worry about it. And it felt good. Like there was like an actual good feeling that accompanied this idea that like, maybe you can sleep, maybe you can rest, and I kept feeling like, what if I was a saint? And by that, I mean like a holy relic, a body that people around the world petition and pray to and ask to intercede on their behalf. And I can't rest. Saints are in a state of torture because we're always disturbing them. We're touching their bones. We're trying to drink the oil out of their lamps, in like the early Christian movement, right? And it's horrible, right? You're constantly yearning for release, and yet you're also intervening on behalf of Christ's grace and so on. And then what if you could sleep? What if for the first time, no one prays to you and you can just relax and sleep and be at rest and to enjoy not having to intercede immediately? What if you could fulfill the petition tomorrow? And this was essentially the peak of the vision, this feeling of oblivion in the maw of this beak of this crow that revealed itself to me as not just the devil attempted Saint Expedite, but as a devil, like as a kind of devil that can be worked magically. And I was seeing Christ's spear wound upon the cross becoming a feast for these carrion, and right as I was watching them just gorge themselves upon his wound, that's when I received the recipe. So there's this recipe for essentially a nasty powder that does everything that Expedite doesn't. It is a tomorrow powder. It is the one that causes delays and that makes you feel good about it. It's a cursing powder, right? It's why I've never released it because frankly, it is gross. And we've mentioned how gross it's been. We've mentioned that even getting a vial of it to Key caused several delays, including an airline delay twice in a row, 2 days in a row. We ended up leaving it at a friend's house when I was supposed to give it to you. We drove off, and then when we came back for the next day, and we waited outside that person's apartment for her to pass it off to us. We left again. The only reason we drove there was to pick it up, and then for some reason, you and I started talking, and we both drove off without necessarily. And she came out and was like, "Guys, do you want your evil powder?" And it would only be quiet once we did the cantrip that I had designed for every batch of it. That would involve the to be being placed underneath Expedite and being given one final component, which is the one thing that you delay most, the one thing that tempts you into procrastination the most, and that's burned and added to it. So this was the original form of it, and to even make it, the whole story is up on withcunningcommand.com, but. Just for a quick recap for those who haven't read the post, to even begin to make it, the first ingredient was waiting 1 year. I hated the shit out of that because one, I was so pumped. I was like, oh my God, this amazing powder. I really want to make it. I hope I never have to use it. I hope I never have, because it's really nasty. I'd like to think of it's that kind of sweet curse of being just like do it tomorrow until 20 years have passed and like you never met your goals, or like you forgot all your friends' birthdays and never said happy birthday to them, or you became an inattentive partner. These kinds of things, like that kind of Malefica. The reason it came about was not because there was a target in mind, not because like this was like a nasty curse, that it was meant to be used in some kind of act of vengeance or something like that. It was literally one of those things where the spirit is like, make this for the sake of making it, like show me you can make it, right? It is a gift unto deepening some mysteries with Expedite, even though it seems like it's so contrary to his nature. But it reminds me a lot of working with Cyprian's pagan heritage as a sorcerer and his Christianity and his like redemption as a martyr, right? This idea of like, here are his paths as he continues to initiate into other kinds of traditions, and then here he is again as a saint weaponizing the powers of the church and also being saved by its grace, right? So this idea of Expedite, who had become a witching saint for me as well, a saint that has absolutely, even though my witchcraft is predominantly Orthodox and predominantly drawing on Eastern European and Balkan sources of magic and folklore, he had ingressed into it. Again, you are the nexus point of your spirits, right? The conflation between them and all the kinds of paths that they travel through is through you. And so you are the person that puts a lot of different kinds of spirits in touch with each other. And so which tutor forms of Expedite that are, I found out as the more Mahi and I really talked about this, was very well known to him. And very well known to Yuki, had been really manifesting. And so I was sharing this kind of idea with you guys of like coming into contact with the Crow Devil and coming into contact specifically with this being that tempted him, as well as emissaries of it, as a kind of spirit that essentially Expedite will always triumph over, and he will always have the authority over. Like in the terms of like Testament of Solomon, he will always be its thwarting angel and can contain it. But defeating this spirit is an act that you undergo every day when you work with Saint Expedite. And so unleashing it is another thing that can be done in order to protect loved ones, or in order to have victory over others and so on, especially in terms of like job magic, in terms of competitions and so on, right? To essentially orchestrate, it's a kind of orchestration of other people's ruin, in terms of ensuring that like, well, am I really ascending through the ranks, or is everyone else just gave up? So it's a nasty piece of work. And I will have to say that like, it was, like I said, it was never made for the intention of doing anything nasty. It was specifically like, it was a test, right? And so the fact that I had to wait a year was already a test, because what if I forget? And I did. I absolutely did, because a year passed, and did I make the powder? No, like other things came up. I was like, oh, whatever, I'll make it tomorrow. And then I realized like, oh, you motherfucker. And it involved all kinds of things, including, oh my God, like eye crust wiped off of many different kinds of people that I had them sent to me when they slept past their alarms, ashes of calendars with like dates that were missed or important things that were missed, but specifically with no reprimand, right? Like nothing bad happened to this person, which makes it sweeter. Like, oh, I can do that again. I can get away with it, right? And of course, lots of herbs, lots of materials, dissolved sleeping pills and offering glasses of alcohol that hadn't been consumed, that were not washed and replenished, were getting kind of murky, these kinds of things. All kinds of cemetery crossroad dirts and ashes of incense and charcoals that had not been emptied, dust from bookshelves upon which not a single book had been read or retrieved in the past year, even though the person who had them was saying I would do it. So people were outsourced to collect this. I didn't want them to do anything negative by like delaying their plans. It just so happened to be like, if you accidentally occurred this, if this matches you, if there's something like this, send me some proof. If you don't mind, print off something in which you were like, oh, I'll do this and didn't do it, and send it to me. And it was combined in this schnasty powder with all kinds of crow things. And we were on a voice call on Discord, hanging out, and I was talking about this, and Mahigan and Key started talking about like, oh, we should do something for Saint Expedite together. We should make some stuff, and you guys were kind of inspired by my experimentations that I would share with you in private with the whole notion of the Tomorrow Raven, or the Tomorrow Crow, I should say, as a kind of spirit to interact with and to deploy in witchcraft mysteries and so on. And we were talking about this, and I forget who it was that said this out loud, but one of us was like, we should have crow parts as part of this. if we do a collab and we do some things with Cras, we should have a crow parts involved. But it shouldn't be something we buy. It shouldn't be something that we just get from a taxidermy shop. We should find it, especially because part of the rule that I had with the powder was if I had to get something for it, if I had to buy it, I had to go out and get it myself. And I couldn't buy other things in the same shop that I might also want. I would have to do it on a separate day. So basically the whole process was drawn out, right? Like going to the same shop that for me on the subway is, let's say, 45 minutes away, multiple times instead of buying everything at once. Mm-hmm. Annoying. Worst shit ever. Like, it was so grueling. Also, another thing that went into it, by the way, was lost time in a very literal sense. Like, oh, spill these beans, count them, and then don't put them in there. It's like just to waste my time. Oh, I hated it. Hated every second of it. But we were talking about this. And then obviously all of us had our Expedite shrines lit up. And then one of our friends, joins the call out of nowhere.
The same friend whose house we left the powder at.
Yeah.
And so she hops in and is like, hey, did you see the dead crow outside of your apartment?
She had no idea what we were talking about. Like, she just saw that we were in a Discord server that all of us are in and that we were chatting. And so she comes on, not even a hi, hello, how are you guys doing? just being like, Key, did you see? Because like she lives next to you. It's like, did you see the crow outside your apartment? And like all of us look at each other through the screens, like, like, huh?
We all became uncanny Mr. Incredible in that moment.
Literally. And exactly. So you booked it. You turned the webcam off, you ran.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm getting it right now. Goodbye.
And there it was, and it was stomped. It was indeed crushed underfoot, possibly under tire, but not broken. The skull was intact.
Mm-hmm. Skull intact, feet intact, wings intact.
Mm-hmm, most importantly.
Just smushed narrowly, perfectly.
Yeah, and so you chucked that in the freezer and whipped that out only for this collection, which we shared this in the protection episode. So this was the episode 13, So You Think You Can Ward, where we discussed sometimes false alarms, right? Like some omen happens in your home that you think, oh shit, I'm definitely, like someone's throwing at me, or I violated some kind of thing, or some spirit is upset with me, because this wouldn't be happening if everything were chill. And then it turns out it's actually fine. And you told the story then, I think it's worth telling again, of how it is that you built there's an image, right, that's associated with, it's on the blog post from Withcunning Command right now. It's live with the collection, but it's a sexy one, but it's also horrifying, which is the black Saint Expedite statue, the beheaded Saint Expedite statue with the crow skull and has the crow hand at the chains. So what exactly is up with that?
Yeah, so just to run through the story again, I get home one day from work and I'm like, oh man, what is going on? Like, why is the vibe so weird in here? And I look over, and one of the hanging shelves that I have like up on the wall that was holding all of my Expedite stuff was now on the floor. Powders everywhere, oils like busted open, and most notably, the Expedite statue that I had set up and did a bunch of blessings to, which I talked about again in Withcunning Command, Girdie on every man his sword. But
such a good post.
Oh, thank you. And just smashed onto the ground. But the statue broke perfectly to be like straight line decapitation. So the head is just off laying next to the statue, and the hand holding the cross that said Hodie, but otherwise undamaged. So I'm like, interesting.
Right, and you're thinking, like, hold on a second, like, he was beheaded, that's his death, like, what is going on? Is this a bad omen? Is this, like, proof that, like, something is screwy because, like, my saint statue toppled over in this way? Surely this means something is attacked. My shrine succeeded, but that seems strange because the other words are fine and there's no, like, bad vibes otherwise.
Yeah. It was very, very particular because everything else is in place. I'm like, yeah, it's all good. All my other saint shrines that are on hanging shelves right next to it are fine, you know? So we all hop on and start divining on it. And it's like, this is an invitation to do some very funny things. Your Expedite has been martyred. So now what do you do about that? Mm-hmm. So I ended up taking the statue, painting him black, loading him up with a bunch of ridiculous things that are best left unnamed, and then making him into his gloriously evil form that you can see today on the post. Took the crow leg that we had been flagged outside my apartment that was crushed and grafted it onto his de-handed arm, if you will.
That's putting it politely.
Oh yeah, that was quite the process.
No, it's amazing. And then of course, you have Nations Reveal, everything was fine. And then you found out actually that one of the strongest amulets for protection comes from the head of Saint Expedite. So, and which I find interesting because like, why would you ever want to break it off yourself? That just seems like bad juju. And it doesn't seem necessarily authentic. But if you happen to find one, right, a beheaded Expedite, then the head goes into, is like a cloth bag or?
Yeah, some people I've seen using just the head, like right when they find it. But other people have put it into a bag, sometimes alone, sometimes with other materia, and then use it as you would like an egg or a stone as you're cleansing someone. And then using that as like a permanently refreshing amulet, being like, this is functionally the relic of the saint that I'm going to pass over myself.
Amazing. Honestly, iconic. I love it. So you two were the masterminds behind this. I kind of set the whole Cras thing in motion, ironically. And you guys were absolutely just on top of it. Like all this came together very quickly. It was very obviously blessed. So maybe you can explain to Salt and I a little bit about what you're up to and what you have on offer.
Yeah, so one of the first things that I have on offer this time around is visible in its first draft in the horrifying Expedite images in use, which would be his shackles, invoking that very same legend of his imprisonment when he is being harassed by the crow. They've created these chains to be used in binding similar things, to restrain spirits away from people, to scratch away blessings, to hold people in place until tomorrow. And these are a fun foray into a rather malefic implement. But there are some suggested uses in the post, such as, binding poppets of people, tying talismans to icons or effigies, scratching away blessings, using it even sometimes as like a pendulum in divination, or like spinning it around a bowl of water that you then asperge onto a talisman to be like, you are unmade, each step of you is unbaptized, and all that fun stuff.
Woof, I would not want to be on the receiving end of that. But there's also some kind of more benefic uses to it, right? In terms of like, you can use it to bind a spirit that's adversarial towards you, to suppress its pride, much as there's many pentacles for that for each of the planets. But you can also use it to restrain things that are actively causing problems for you, right?
Yeah, exactly. It kind of goes back to this pervasive idea that illnesses themselves or conditions themselves that are crossed or otherwise unfortunate can be addressed as spirits and exercised as such. So this can bind inaction itself. The very crow devils pointing to them with the claw and be like, okay, you are dispatched, go away from here. Allow me to work today, accost me no longer. Wrapping it around, things that you need to be protected. Just to be like, this has to get done today. No tomorrow may cross this line, or no things that go bump in the night can get to it. And yeah, of course, binding any such thing that might be malefically inclined.
Amazing. And how did you, obviously you can't say the full thing, but like, how did you practically make them? Like, what are they composed of?
Yeah, so each one is pretty much like a meter long length of chain. The chain itself has been through a number greater than 5 different herbal baths constructed under different moons, and to the end of each of them is affixed to one of these claws that has been extracted and somewhat pacted with one of these imps that take the form of these crows. And affixed to the other end are some vertebrae of the crows, being the kind of center point through which their spirit can enter into its length and use its claw once again. So they're pretty straightforward in forms, pretty utilitarian, but above all meant to be extremely usable.
I, for one, am absolutely afraid of the shipping process.
That's why there's all the good pacts we have in place to make sure things get out appropriately.
Yeah, exactly. I've already been like making my petitions being like, listen, when the stuff gets here and we're shipping it out, I need to Zoom, okay?
It's like you got to restrain your own thing. I think that's also part of the packaging, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love it. And Salt, this kind of reminds me a little bit of some of your musings on various devils that you've written about on the blog as well, with like the sea serpent's rib and everything.
Such good work.
Honestly, I love this idea of like restraining the more demonic impulses and like the way in which it can be used to hold back temptations from wicked and eluding spirits. Like, honestly, it's just, if you're trying to be an ascetic monk, I think it's definitely something to have on hand.
It's such a different thing from suppressing the pride of a spirit is to suppress the desire of the spirit to necessarily like turn away from you. It's to be like, oh, well, yeah, like I'll do it tomorrow. Or like just getting them to ease up on it. I think it's fascinating. It's like, it's such a great, kind of encounter with who are the devils that tempt our martyrs and our saints? Like, who are the spirits that show up and try and, be the instrument by which they prove their saintliness, which they prove the ability for the Holy Spirit to move through them, right? Including in the ways in which they imitate Christ and in the way that they die and the way that they suffer. I think it's absolutely fascinating stuff. And you have obviously a powder that takes a little pinch of the one that I made as a core, and then adds a lot more to it to kind of on the one hand, like boost it in some ways, but also transform it from one that is purely used to delay things to one that is, you called it the double fast unluck powder.
Yeah, it's a bit of a pun on the classic recipe of double fast luck powders and oils and things like that. The double invoking the nature of a pinch of your powder being used as a piece of materia unto itself. With your blessing to do such a thing and make this powder into a bit of something special. But really, it is to kind of have this dual use. Obviously, it can be something malefic, but really it's built around something that delays or confuses spirits. So it has this incredibly and incidental protective quality to it. You might, if you're poking around at this powder, having ordered some, like different grains that are used to confuse spirits, like if you cast it to the wind and make them count each grain.
This is like millet on steroids.
Yeah, very, millet, rice, grains of rock salt, all sorts of things like that. That would be otherwise used to, distract the vampires that might be coming after you and make them a bit confused. But the unluck, of course, comes from kind of the main ingredient that I wanted to use as like the body of the powder, being over the past year, because paralleling Svinga's experience with the Cras powder, having to very slowly accrue a weekly play of the numbers game worth of losing lottery tickets.
Oh no.
Which, lucky for me, are not the most expensive thing in the world, but the process is slow and arduous, especially when I spent, the last year making things that make you win at gambling.
I mean, literally, like all your oils for Saint Expedite. I mean, to make one of them, you need to win through gambling, like win money through gambling with the other one in order to make. Yeah.
The green oil has a dollar bill in it that got shredded up that I won gambling with the red oil. But yeah, the corpus of American folk magic, be it conjure, hoodoo, what have you, regarding this specific style of lottery is vast and highly developed. So having to circumnavigate all of those enchantments put in place was something of its own process, and studying how to unmake enchantments and blessings in that way that people might petition their spirits for. It's quite the thing. So all that went in there, along with, tons of different herbs, dirt from people who died very unlucky deaths, the breaths of people who said, I've had a really unlucky day today.
Oh my God, you're that creep like tying the knot. Like in the string in your pocket.
Mm-hmm.
For real.
I feel like in a roundabout kind of way that could be used to like actually win like lotteries and stuff by just making everyone who's participating just so unlucky that you like rise up above them.
Exactly, yeah.
You
can further give an edge to, any sort of working that would require favor to fall upon you in a contest. Let's say you're applying for a job and the recruiter's like, oh, there are 3 other applicants. It's like, okay, I'm going to be the lucky one today. Give me that. Continuing my, vampiric flair to things. And, yeah.
Oh my God. Y'all are freaks. I love it.
Yeah, I'm really excited that we got to work on this together. I think it's gonna be so much fun, like seeing everything out in the world, especially with the bundles we're putting together. Just because I know I designed my kind of stuff to be used in a very like similar way in terms of like the image that I had like designing the candle was very much like a crow with like a severed foot in its mouth, and very much about kind of dominating over people's like sense of responsibility and sense of getting things done on time and everything, and just like getting really gnarly with it. I actually am recommending it to be used after your petition has been fulfilled. Like you don't light it until the spell's done kind of vibe. So I'm really excited for that. And also just to like kind of tap into that folk devil sort of aspect. What I'm doing with them is a lot, it's very like similar to what I've done in the past with some like Man in Black sort of vibes, where it's very like crossroads devil, carry on and just like stealing things from others kind of vibe. So I think that wasn't like that and the chains is going to work together so well.
Oh my God, I can only imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Mahi, you've also had a whole experience of working with Saint Expedite as a kind of double-headed saint too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been with Saint Expedite for a long time. I feel like at this point, he's probably like the spirit that's been in my court for the longest out of like who I'm working with at the moment. Yeah, I think I first like petitioned him from like Judica Iles' book when I was, I don't know, like 10, 11. So like almost like 13, 14 years ago.
Yeah.
Which, has been insane because I continued to work with him all throughout the years. I think it was only 4 or 5 years ago where like things kind of like took a shift and he became like a much more witchcraft oriented spirit for me, which weirdly came with him getting booted out of my house. I had some like tensions between spirits and there was like a whole contest of speed and stuff like that. And so he kind of like took the side. I like sold my statue and like got rid of all my materia and stuff. And then like a couple of years later got the okay to bring him back. So I like bought another statue and I got all my stuff back on. And that's when I made like my initial big Saint Expedite release for Kitchen Toad, as like an offering to him to be like the return of the prodigal son kind of vibe. But yeah, like ever since I feel like he's taken on very much like the characteristic of a double saint, because I don't work with him on like a contractual basis anymore. Like he's definitely a spirit that I go to not only for emergencies or for money or for whatever. Like he is an integral part of my court. He probably gets the most offerings out of everyone in my court. Like his shrine is the most active and everything, which I don't talk about like too much because I feel like it gets complicated to explain that on social media. So I keep hush hush. But, he does have a lot of syncretism with witchcraft spirits, with a lot of spirits that command the dead or that open the gateway for the dead to come through. He can like expedite the death of someone. He can also expedite someone's luck or someone's downfall. He can really like work both sides of the medal for any purpose. Like, I feel like he's kind of gone from like soldier to mercenary in my mind. He will do anything that you ask him to as long as he's compensated and that he's like happy with the results, which makes him like very, very versatile, but also very dangerous for the other person anyways, not for me. But no, like he's a lovely spirit, and he's also been kind of I wouldn't say like necessarily a teacher in like witchcraft specifically, but he's definitely taught me a lot about like working with saints and with other double-headed saints. Like I feel like he's kind of like the gateway drug to working malefic saints a little bit, because he's very much like ambivalent. He can do both, and so from there I kind of started working with Saint-Pierre and with some other spirits that I'm just getting introduced with, and it's kind of like taught me the value of, or not the value, but like the lack of delineation between like what is good and what is evil when you're doing like more like folk magic or like witchcraft stuff.
And it's interesting that you said like he kind of like was cast out briefly, then came back. It's very saintly in some ways.
Right?
The drama.
Very biblical.
Yeah.
But yeah, he like came back with a vengeance, and then like from there, that's when I started really experimenting with different techniques of working with him instead of just being like, "Hey man, can you do this for me? Thanks, I'll pay you." And going into like, I do a lot of like foot track magic with him. I do a lot of like cemetery work with Saint Expedite for protection, and also just for like kind of like psychopomp-y kind of things. I also do a lot of like spirit shopping, spirit seeking with him, where like I ask him to like bring certain things to me, or to find certain items and to tell me where they are so that I can go find them. Kind of like treat him like a little bit of a scout in that sense. And actually, Key, your article about like equipping him and like loading his statue and stuff like that was the start of a couple of things for me as well, in terms of like I use a lot of like materia with Saint Expedite on his statue. So like I use mugwort to like anoint his feet so that he like is less tired and can work longer, like work faster. Which is crazy, asking like this fastest saint to work faster, but got to be a little greedy. And like equipping him with like a sash with like the names of the three magi, so that again like he never gets tired. There's actually like a great formula for a sash to never get tired walking in Alexander Cummins's Book of the Magi.
Yeah.
And that's what I adapted to actually like work with him. It's like tucked away behind his statue, and I've got him like with like a loaded animal bone skull and like a little Guadalupe medallion and stuff like that, just to kind of play on his like aspect of working with the dead a little bit. That's actually something that I wanted to invoke when I was designing the chaplets that we'll be releasing with the collection. They're not necessarily like for necromantic work, but I did want to like evoke that aspect of him, so I used a little bit of like a skull-shaped bone bead in them. And I remember we were picking them out, and we were talking about like using jet maybe for like the dead or something like that. We ended up going with like a few different things, but I'm really happy how they turned out, and I'm hoping that those can be used specifically in conjunction with the other items in the collection to kind of, you know, recite your prayers and like meditate and stuff like that, and kind of like enter into contact with the devil. I'd really love something that I'm personally working on right now is actually trying to like contact him and trying to figure out more like where he rests in this whole witchcraft sort of thing. But obviously it's taking fucking forever because like something will happen and I'll never like finish my repetitions, or you know, it'll be like, oh, you'll receive a dream, and I'm still waiting for it like a month later. But I actually, I used your Cras powder on those as well, and it was fucking potent, my guy. It was so cool. I remember like at some point I was on a voice call with one of my friends planning some stuff, and I was like making them, and at some point I literally like stood there with like a half finished chaplet and like the pliers in the other hand for like 40 minutes talking without doing it, and then I had to like finish them like on another day, and I was like, this is so on the nose. I hate it.
It's like when we were all like discussing this at various times, and we were like, oh man, like I remember you were at my place where Salt and I were like just carrying around the kitchen, like Key was on the couch, and you were like, hey, can I have some of the Cras powder to take home to like use for this, and like kind of use it as like a starter for some things? And I was like, sure. And then like I went up the stairs, and because I have the cantrip applied, it didn't, obviously affect me that way because it was like secure on my shrine. And I was like, okay, cool, and I put it in like a little bottle for you and stuff like that. I said the cantrip over it. And I was like, okay, cool, I'm going to give it to you. And everything went fine. Like your trip back went fine. And I was like, here's the difference, is that I didn't say the cantrip over it before I went to Keys. Because I learned my mistake. Because I was like, oh, I'll do it when I get to the shrine. It makes sense, right? I mean, what's the worst that could happen? And like my folly, my hubris, absolutely deserved everything that I got with those headaches. But no, we got it this time, and it made its way safely to you. But that's one of those things that I'm excited to see you guys build on this, because like it's such a cool idea. I love that it's chaplets. It matches your other chaplets that you've done many years now. They've been available, and they're always excellent. I love the ones that you have for your like the green and the red ones.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And you actually were responsible for us making a bunch of like little chaplets that we didn't sell them or anything like that. They're just for private use because you mailed us those great medallions as well. And I found some Expedite medallions in different places in the city, which have been lovely as well. I kind of make it
nice.
into one of those like what will the kitschy thrift shop that happens to have a bowl full of Saint medallions have for me today? It's like, oh, a Marian Tire of Knots, excellent. Oh, there's Expedite, so it's definitely seen its use. But I like this, that it's going to have a little kind of, it'll match the chains really well, but be used more like lightly on the go as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like I feel like we made the decision. I was originally going to make rosaries. We made the decision to do like chaplets instead, to like have them like in the pocket. And just like have them on the go, which I think is going to be super cool, because I can totally imagine myself in traffic using them and being slow the fuck down. You don't have to get to where you need to be. Let me pass.
Catholic photo makers.
Jungle is massive.
No, literally. I'm providing a bunch of instructions, and I'm providing like a little bit of an evil Triduum kind of vibe, so like a 3-day prayer that is specifically used for like cursing, calling on Saint Expedite and the devil beneath his foot.
Literally, like evil Expedite says tomorrow. Like,
yeah, literally. Like you wake up with tomorrow tattooed on your forehead.
Oh, the worst. This is like this is my literal nightmare, is that I just know with how, completely all over the place I can be sometimes. I'm just like, let me bottle this. It's kind of therapeutic. I made this evil and I bottled it, and now it's contained. So don't.
The evil has been contained.
Literally, it's been defeated. So for those of us who despair around this kind of thing, and don't necessarily mercifully don't have a lot of competition or a lot of problems, absolutely it can be used to pray against these same problems coming up, because a Saint Expedite boosts you and gives you the invigoration to kind of conquer that, so too can this be done to actively ensorcel and bind and keep away the same distractions.
Totally. And I mean, like, you fully have my permission to like take a candle and just melt it in the oven and just like conquer over procrastination that way. Burn it down 5 times faster than it's supposed to.
Yeah, and you've got your own powder coming back, right? You got your usual rosaries, your oils, key. You're doing your oil of Saint Expedite V2, the gold, the red, and the green, all back, and the nutmegs. Yay! I love how many people message us to say like, my nutmeg got me out of this. Like I was able to do this. Thanks to this, the cantrip of like releasing its thread, I was able to like win a serious competition right when I thought that I was going to lose it, and so on. Like it's lovely. I carry mine everywhere.
I'm glad. I love how well received those talismans were each year that I've done them, and I'm hoping to hear back from people again this year, because out of like everything that I've ever made or sold through the site, they're the ones that people engage with me about, which I'm like, yo, that's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that they're continuing even 3, 4, 5 years on to just keep doing their thing.
I absolutely love mine. I have mine set with Hodie the Conqueror, actually. And it's been
awesome.
Fucking instrumental in like so much stuff. I'm actually planning on recharging it and you taking it with me on the go soon to take care of some personal affairs that I just really need to like work out really quickly. And I just know, I trust it's going to go so well.
Excellent.
What's different about them this time around? You always get a little boost in.
Yeah, so as everyone knows, the previous editions have kind of like this mad scientist vibe to them. They are contained in botanical specimen jars that give them kind of this, little paste vibe, with the powder that makes them go fast and refreshes them and kind of feeds them in many ways. Of course, the core being a hollowed out whole nutmeg filled up with a tiny bead of mercury and filled with wax. But this time around, they will be housed in cloth into little kind of far more traditional housings for them, forming a mojo hand all to their own.
That's awesome.
And for anyone who gets one, don't worry. It is very much so sealed up, so the mercury cannot leak. It's just a different take on the outside and a new and improved metallurgical recipe of things that I feed into the amalgam that eventually makes them go.
That's awesome. Is the cloth like part of the cape setup that you have for your statue?
Yeah. So just for the listeners, every year leading up to Expedite's feast day, I clad him with a big red cape that grows increasingly large and gaudy every year. That, I don't know, he seems to like it. But on the day of the feast, I remove the cape, chop it up, and make tons of different, mojo hands, put little pieces of it or like threads that come off into other charms and other oils, into, powders. If I take some of it, write a talisman on it, roll it up, put it in an oil lamp, any sort of thing like that. And it's been good. It tends to make things work a little faster, a little better, gives a little pump of luck, which is always good.
I love it. We once had to take a pound cake directly to the door of a notoriously slow bureaucratic building that we were trying to influence some of the paperwork that was in there. And we had like crosses of coins and different currencies in it, plus incense sticks and, like waved hi to the security camera that was obviously on us, left it there, petitioned and so on. And it was really interesting to see how like crumbs of these things make their way back in like to other kinds of essentially like charm bags, because like in my tradition, the one that I'm trained in book and folk magic, we always include bits of bread. And specifically, like my mentor always taught me to include some bread that you had baked in each charm to represent kind of like the fact that this is now grown, it is now expanded. It went from nothing to something. It is joy. It's sharing in the literal like succor of a victory by having something to eat, and so on. So it feeds spirits, it promotes movement, it promotes manifestation, and so on. So it's been great to see that kind of thing. And so I'm glad to see that, I mean, powdered pound cake is in a lot of these things, right? But I like that you're doing this time around for year. I think this is the 4th edition, right? You sold them 2 years in a row, but this is technically the 4th edition that you have them in these conjure hand type vehicles, especially because like I love that they're in the little like capsules. Originally, because I kind of like hearing them jingle around, but this will be nice and a bit stealthy too, in terms of just being able to have it around. Will they still be able to untie something as part of the knot to release it?
Yes, around the top of each bag. I make all of my mojo hands, no matter what they're for, in red fabric with white thread tying to the top, just because that's how I was taught to make them. But additionally, on top, the white thread will be the same red thread that is used and has been continually blessed from the same spool for as long as I've been making them, to contain the same emergency one-time use luck boost.
Yeah, and you have the water from his shrine in New Orleans, and many other things have touched that statue as well. So you're all good to go.
Yeah, definitely.
Amazing. It's been a real joy watching you guys put this together, because one, it's like I love that you're bundling things, so like folks will be able to get from both of you and to have these things kind of tied together. But you also have this amazing kind of like emphasis on the kind of an introduction into really helping people work with Saint-Expedite more as a kind of two-handed, two-headed witchcraft patron as well, that I think will, if it's not always the easiest thing to approach, especially without necessarily like a nuance from a mentor, right? I think that you guys can become that for a lot of people by showing how disc really works for you.
Yeah, I think as well, like the way you guys have pulled this off, it kind of captures the spirit of Expedite, right? Like you kind of got the drive going on, so to speak.
Because it came through quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of work in a short amount of time, right? Like,
yeah, like once we, actually started making this stuff, one of the things that I always really like about making things for Expedite is once it starts, it kind of doesn't stop until it's done, and then it's done all of a sudden.
Totally. I've pulled like 16, 18 hours without even like realizing it.
Yeah. I love that amount of influence. And just kind of to the earlier point, Svinga, I really hope to kind of allow people to make that foray into this kind of dark yet beautiful side of the saint that we all know and love. And I think the way that we kind of bundle everything together is like, okay, here's the toolkit you need, and here is like a guided experience, almost an old grimoire in terms of like, okay, here are experiments to try.
Totally, yeah. I feel like everything that we made is so like complementary as well, which is going to be really, really nice because you've got, the stuff that's obviously more on the nose of like cause procrastination, but then we've also got like your chains, which can bind it and kind of like keep you from like straying too far into the seduction and the temptation of not getting anything done, right? Which can definitely be like a risk with all of this.
Yeah, exactly. As much as it is a chain that can bind your enemies, it is a something of an anchor to keep you in place and keep you on task.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm hoping that people will be able to like see this collection and like the launch and all that, and kind of be introduced to the concept that like there's not much black and white when you get like into the depths of a lot of saint work. One thing for me, like within my own practice with Saint Expedite, is that I'm very, very vocal about him, and I'm very like I am a Saint Expedite evangelist. Like I'm not even playing. Like I can talk about him every chance I get. I have tons of articles and tons of posts about him, and I do community rituals on his behalf, and I am constantly recommending people to work with him. And it's like anytime someone's like, I'd like to like get into like working with saints, I'm like, who's really cool? Who's really great? Saint Expedite.
Did I tell you that when Key and I were in Croatia, we went into this little Catholic store, and I was speaking with the person there in our language, in Serbo-Croatian, and I ended up getting a number of those like little chapbooks where you can like little prayers and so on, right? And so I was like, oh, okay, let me just check this out. I found one for like the Virgin of Guadalupe that I wanted to get. I saw 2 for Saint Expedite that I got, a bunch of other ones, And so I was checking out, and because I had 2 for Saint Expedite, the lady at the kind of teller is like asks me in our language like, oh, why him? Why Saint Expedite? And I basically tell her like, well, he resolves things very quickly, doesn't he? Like I don't like I just kind of put it that way. Like I really didn't like put a lot of thought into it. And then I kind of mentioned, and he helps my father a lot with getting things done quickly when he has need of expediency in his job. And she literally just grasps my hands and goes just like, yes, he works very quickly. He's a remarkable, And I was like, yes. And we just had this moment of like high-fiving each other over this. And it's really funny because like obviously I'm I love the moments like that because like I'm Orthodox, right? So like, and you can probably tell from my accent and the way that I crossed myself when I came in because it was next to a church, right? So I had already gone through. But listen, it's pan-cultural, okay? His
absolutely, yeah,
and amazingness, yeah.
No, I love it. I mean, I have folks in like Singapore who have started working with him because of like the article that I have on my blog and stuff like that. And I'm always like, yes, let his cult grow,
expand. Yeah, because he's already huge. You know what I mean? Like he's everywhere. Like I said, it's his cult is massive in so many different parts of the world, including Latin America, United States, Eastern Africa, the Southeast Asia, and so on, and Europe, obviously. Like he's truly everywhere. And while he doesn't necessarily, need us to evangelize for him, it is our part of our love for him, really, that we do so. Especially because he's one of those rare spirits that all of us share that we could just talk about. Like, and that's a joy. There's something beautiful to that, to be like, oh my God, yes, we can actually all talk about having a relationship with the spirit, because there's ones that we're equally as invested and passionate about, but the secrecy taboos are what they are. So I think it's just lovely that we're able to kind of flex, our good boy. And not to mention the fact that, he has extremely developed syncretic cults all over the place.
Yes.
I mentioned, in the Caribbean, in Latin America and Brazil, right? He has these excellent, already fully encultured manners of approach that obviously take their own training and their own enculturation, to engage with. I highly recommend having a mentor from those places, or someone who is well versed in that to pass that on to you if that's a route that you want to go, if that's something that you're pulled towards. But he's also a saint, right? So he is accessible through prayer and through candles, and through water and so on. Like he does intercede, regardless, as himself or as the spirits that choose to agree to show up when you pray to him, and so on. So there's something really beautiful about the way in which he's very, very willing to come forward, and just he likes the attention. That's the other thing. He's funny.
Totally.
I find that just all those stories of oh, he likes being called handsome. Oh, he likes it when you post on my mom under a one-off literal throwaway Reddit account went on the Saint Expedite subreddit to thank him and asked me to proofread the English for her. And I said, you can write in Serbian if you want to, but she wanted it to be in English. It was so cute. Just she was like, I gotta praise him publicly. Where do I do that? And so it's so great. I think that there's something about the increase in his and the workings that you have for him, and all the material you've collected to put together this collection for increase and for power, for renown, for occlusions of majesty and of victory and of triumph and of self-mastery. And then you also have this kind of shadow side, as it were, right? That you bring in order to ensure that not only can you really have decisive victories over enemies, but you can also get into some really great necromancy with him, because as I mentioned, he's feared, right, in many parts of the world in terms of his syncretic forms, because he heals quickly, he slays quickly, right, he kills quickly. And so that's one of those things that I find is he'll bind a spirit quickly for you, he'll bring it to be subjugated quickly. And it's a whole other thing that even in the way in which the crow manifested. Not necessarily the craziest way we've come across some materia. We've all had wonderful. We're very grateful to our spirits for just being excellent at bringing us things, and we do petition them for that. But that was really funny that that our friend literally just came on to the voice call exactly as we were talking about this, and was just like, "Hey, there's a crow outside your apartment. I just drove past it," and had no idea we were discussing this.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something to be said as well about I personally think it's so cool how he was technically taken off the roster of official saints around the time when he started becoming increasingly syncretized with all of these cults and these kinds of double-headed natures and stuff like that. And I think it's interesting working with him, looking at things from a perspective of what does it mean to be posthumously canonized and then also rejected by the church later on, and what does that mean in terms of how he interacts with other spirits and how he interacts with faith, and do the prayers that we're making to him actually reach his ears in the way that we think and stuff like that. So there's a lot of really, really interesting kind of deeper mysteries on not only syncretism and on being double-headed, but also on heresy and on kind of and on blasphemy, which I think is it's a big part of what I like to do with him, and kind of gauging if it's him, or if it's a crossroads devil that's coming through, or if it's another spirit that's taken his form. I've had a lot of conversation with friends talking about what the fuck even is Saint Expedite? Is the Saint Expedite that we're looking at in the Saints of the Day book, and who's venerated in France at Saint Roch's Church and stuff like that, the same as the Saint Expedite who showed up nameless in New Orleans? It's very interesting. He's very nuanced, and he's very, very multifaceted. So I'm excited for people to get their hands on some grimy, nasty, gross Saint Expedite stuff.
This ain't your mama's Saint Expedite stuff.
Real talk, do you guys' Saint Expedite statues look like Mark Zuckerberg, or is that just me?
It's yours. It's literally just yours. We both have pictures of them up on our Instagrams. You can see what mine looks like. He just looks like a beheaded demon with a. No, I'm kidding. That's the Getter one. That's the dark crow one. None of ours look like none of ours look like Mark Zuckerberg except for yours, Mahi.
I'll take my L.
You know what? Maybe he's just very business minded. Okay, and that works out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I feel like he's gone more handsome over the years.
He's
not Mark Zuckerberg, Expedite.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. Oh my goodness! I remember the first time you asked me if I thought he looked like Zuckerberg, and then I was like, "Hold on, let me open your Instagram real quick." And for all of you listening, go do this right now.
It's so embarrassing.
And I was like, it actually really, really, really does. This is why I said we have to have friends on, okay? Because I need to be able to be exactly who I am with you. Which is that I will zoom in on your shrine pics and rate how much like Mark Zuckerberg all your statues look like.
Listen, if anyone's listening to this podcast and has a Saint Expedite statue that looks like Mark Zuckerberg, I expect DMs. We need to unionize.
You guys need a support group.
Exactly.
Because it's the same statue. It's the one you can get on Amazon, right? The 12-inch one. And some of them, mine looks kind of angelic. He's got rosy cheeks. He looks great,
Yeah, they're not made equal.
My Saint Cyprian one is definitely mewing.
He's got that jawline.
He does. You can feel it for sure.
Just imagining a very weird conjuration.
He's been mewing.
It's by the strength of Cyprian's jawbone, and then all of a sudden it's just funk music playing.
Yeah, exactly. Salt's I'm Anglican. I don't have to worry about canonization.
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit it's kind of convenient to not have to worry too much about canonization when you can kind of say, hey, this guy served as an example of a good Christian in life. He's a suitable candidate for you to consider him a hero. And so, you can have a nice big array of not necessarily too orthodox mighty dead, so to speak, even if they're not officially monikered with the title saint. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can just do that anyway, but let me have my moment,
Tom Dryberg, the good Anglican boy.
Oh my God.
Actually, now that we're talking about denominations, do your parents celebrate his feast on the Gregorian or the Julian calendar?
They do the Gregorian, yeah, because that's the one that everyone's using, right? There's power in that. I think that's one of those things is yes, there is a sacredness to these days, right? I think that both calendar dates are perfectly valid. But I do think that if it's actually celebrated in your household, there is an oomph to that than just necessarily being because, some people will be oh, I missed the Gregorian date, I'll use the Julian date as my backup. And I want to just kind of be I agree it can be used that way, absolutely, because they're both valid, right? But I think that committing to celebrating feasts and so on the Julian calendar, there is something to it because the spirits of your house are not getting used to it, right? They're oh, this is important. It's kind of like spirits. I always inform my house spirit, oh, my friend is coming over. This person's going to be here for a little while. This person's birthday is coming up. We're going to celebrate that. Or this ancestor's birthday is coming up, so we're gonna lay out a feast. That kind of thing. Getting your spirits aware that this is a date that you're going to be doing things on is very helpful. But yeah, we all use the Gregorian for him, which is exactly when this is airing.
That is so good to know because I hope that one day I can visit during his feast and we can all have a huge party for him.
Oh my God, yes. My parents are definitely waiting for you to come back.
Such wonderful hospitality. I miss them.
We'll all make pancakes together.
Yes.
Yes. So
half a dozen each.
Half dozen each, indeed. Well, now that we've said it, we've got to do it. Oh.
Nani? There it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll definitely have to have a big party for him at some point.
It will be great. Yeah, we'll have a party favors all dressed in red, right? No, it's
everyone
great.
just gets a little medal.
Oh my God, literally participation trophy, except it's just those little Amazon statuettes you can get of him that you can pin.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I think I found him remarkably ingenious when it comes to approaching all these kinds of opportunities. Your imagination is truly the limit in terms of what he can do, right? Because there's so much that goes beyond just the kind of bartering of this amount of cake and, red carnations and roses and public praise for this amount of results. Like I've worked with him to speed up things with other spirits. I've put other spirits like fetishes and idols under his cloak to kind of get them to work together. I've taken mini statues of him on the road with me when I've needed certain kinds of things that have been washed in certain waters and oiled up in certain ways and fumigated with certain herbs and so on. I've taken Palm Sunday crosses and like kitted him out with them to kind of like grant him certain kinds of boons and so on. It's all about I think approaching him as you guys have pointed out, as a living spirit, as a spirit that can continue to intercede in different kinds of ways, and to know that he is as absolutely dangerous. Like all spirits are. Every saint has the to even approach, let's say Saint Justina, is to be threatened in some ways by the immensity of your purity that can just scald you, and you become the you experience the ending of the first Indiana Jones movie all over again. You just get melted by just the sheer vigor of her purity. To approach her is bold, right? It's to be judged, it's to be observed, it's to be analyzed, and to be subjected to a kind of cleansing. So in that way, to approach Expedite and then to have a bunch of things that are not working out for you, I think it's really good to show. We take up the mantle of the spirits that we want to walk with. So I try to I ask him for support in that, but I also follow through. Because it's like
Totally.
we've talked about this a lot on this podcast, but like your word meaning so much to so many spirits, including like it doesn't matter if you have the most lavish feast, if you're doing it always in reparations, or if you're doing it in lieu of making a smaller but more regular commitment, right? It's the fact that you said, I will do it and I will commit to it, that keeps the spirits coming back for more, because they know that your word means something. It's not arbitrary. You're not just saying, and you're not just going to buy your way out of it. Some spirits absolutely can be bought in that way, and it's fine. But for the ones that you're building as your court, as like your integral spirits that aren't just contract based, and it's okay if Saint Expedite is one of those spirits that you just kind of default to for last minute things on a contract basis. If you keep your end of the bargain, like he will come through for you. But if you're working with him on a deeper level, or if you're trying to explore him, none of us claim to be experts in his craft, in the sense that like we're all eternal students right under his mantle. But I think that our experiences and kind of taking notes together and catching up with each other over the years, and kind of being very frank and open with each other about it in terms of like, what have we noticed that works, what have we noticed doesn't work. All of us have pretty much come to the same conclusion that like your steadfastness, consider his myth, right? Consider the hagiography, that like he was not willing to abide by the injustice that he saw in front of him, seeing the beheading of and the torture of Christians, and he decided, he had to convert. He wouldn't abide by this as a member of the Roman Centurion, right? And he knew this would result in his death. He knew that this would result in him being put to the sword, and he even saw what might have been like an omen trying to save him right from this crow and being like, "Don't do it." And instead he's like, no, I recognize you for what you are. I see you for what you are. He saw injustice. He called it out in the sense that he was not willing to he was not willing to abide by a system that was punishing and torturing innocent people, and persecuting them. And so he decided he was going to join the very people who were being oppressed, when he himself was one of the oppressors, essentially, as one of these soldiers. And he knew that he would perish for it. And so I think meditating, as much as we can kind of giggle about, yes, he's fast, yes, he's amazing, yes, he's charismatic and enjoys praise, but he also is extremely dignified and is a spirit, I think, of immense integrity, in terms of like, not just because he's a saint, because he's holy, but because there's something very powerful about not being willing to stand by when injustice takes place and saying, I will stand up for this cause today, like right now. I'm putting on, I'm either laying down my arms in protest, or I'm taking out my sword, rather, to fight on their behalf, like right now, and I'm not waiting. And so cultivating that in your own friendships and in your own life, I think is something that really comes strongly, because I've even used him as and I've worked with him specifically for protection and for courage in moments that I knew would not be socially convenient for me, but when I knew I had to do the right thing. And so he was one of those spirits that I'm able to, I keep a little pin of fabric with a medal of him and some of the fabric that, taking inspiration from Yuki, I made as a cloak for him. And I put it on the inside of my backpack, or on the inside of my handbag that I've taken to some places and been like, okay, I need a boost, or like I'll keep the very thing that I'm worried about with like a single crow feather and a petition under my shoe, right? I'll put that under my sock, so I'm stepping on it like him. and being like, okay, some oil from, that you actually made key, like I will use it and anoint it and be like, okay, I'm on my way now. I want this spirit to protect me and to ensure that like I don't falter, because not all of us are able to necessarily like feel the presence of the spirits in the moment when we need them the most. So it's nice to have that physical reminder to be like, no, this isn't a metaphor, this isn't a symbol, right? This is that spirit. Like this is him being with me.
Yeah, totally. I feel like there's so many little acts of devotion that go into like working with him that is beyond just the contract of like pound cake, wine, and flowers. But steadfastness, like you said, is like really like the big thing, and kind of like integrity and following through and then sticking to your guns, and to be able to like advocate for yourself, or for like others who are like downtrodden, right? There is the whole hoodoo belief that like if you don't give Expedite his offerings, like someone in the house will die, or like he will take away all of his blessings and stuff like that. And you can kind of like see like how cutthroat he is in his own predicament of refusing to convert on another day, and he's just like, no, I'm doing it now. So that's like a lot of, I think, what goes into kind of developing more of a relationship with him, kind of espousing those qualities and going and bringing that into your life, like you mentioned, in terms of how you treat your friends and your spirits and your work. There's a reason he's the patron saint of procrastinators, right?
Right, and also of urgent cases.
Exactly, and also of like court cases and stuff like that. He is very much like, he's about like doing what's right, and usually what's right is following through. Whether you're doing a morally good thing, I think his vision of like what is to be done is like sticking a lane, or like picking a lane and sticking to it and just going to the end of that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. And I like the idea of him as somebody who can obviously get you out of a pinch in law situations, when you're driving, certainly in waiting times, in terms of like needing healthcare assistance. He heals literally, right, in terms of actually healing wounds quickly, but he also heals by getting you bumped up on waiting lists, getting you a family doctor, getting you like the right expert to suddenly get a referral to you so that you can go to that person. They can finally address the thing that's been causing a problem for so long and so on. Like it's absolutely remarkable.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like how many of us are like stuck in a perpetual waiting game, right? When it comes to like government, or when it comes to health or academics, or like literally anything, right? In a world where like, unfortunately, a lot of the time it's like first come, first serve. Like his skill in like making you the first to show up really like can take you very, very far in career, or like in personal stuff, or in court, or in literally any setting.
Yeah, at this point, like Salt, you're used to seeing me come down the stairs and then start like cracking open the eggs and the flour and the sugar to be like, I gotta make a pound cake because I worked.
It's expedited time.
You literally, yeah.
I remember last time when we had to like make his offerings, we had to like make them like now, and I think we ended up like making pound cake at like 11:30. It was done baking at like 1 a.m.
Yeah.
They were like, here, please enjoy.
Okay. And oh my god, yeah, it's so funny. But that's just another day in the life of, right? Because that's one thing I really appreciate about all of us is like we're always doing magic, and we're always experimenting with things, and we're always seeing exactly kind of like how things tick, how they actively like work together, and how these spirits come together to enhance our lives in very practical ways. So that's one of those things that like I love the emphasis on like how do we actively improve our chances of things working especially with a saint that is like known to basically do really well by pretty much anybody, magicians or not, or just everyday, believers and devotees and so on. And what does that kind of like more intimate relationship of the saint of swift solutions, as he's sometimes called, come through. And there's no shortage of excellent articles on him in terms of like, there's so many great blogs, especially from the African-American conjure tradition on Saint Expedite. But we also have, great ones just coming around for tourism websites, looking at his various cults in different places, looking at kind of him in conjure, him in different kinds of ATRs, and him in different kinds of like syncretic traditions. Like there is so much good work out there on Saint Expedite, and I really, really love the the fact that we can all kind of come together we all have burning needs. We all have things we need done right now. We all have bad habits we want to suppress and bind and throw away. He's in many ways the reminder that you don't have to wait for New Year's to make a petition or to make some kind of like resolution, right? To change something. Like, you want to learn a new language, start today. Duolingo is free. If it's on there, there's many resources out there. You want you want to make it very significant but incremental change, like go find the local library, go find the local gym and start exercising, start improving yourself, because there's so much that magic shows us that we can ultimately sway, especially things that we think is completely out of our control. And I think Saint Expedite is always pushing me to continually re-examine what I truly think is immovable, or what I've kind of chosen to be complacent about. And remember that, like, I'm not alone addressing this. This isn't just me pulling myself up by the bootstraps or something like that. This isn't some kind of like metaphor that it all falls on my shoulders. It's a communal response, because I'm helped by a community of spirits and saints and friends, and we come together to protect each other. And so I don't know, it's very inspiring for me to see you guys put together this collection, and I hope people will have an absolutely amazing time with it. I mean, I have no doubt that I will be texting you all both exactly my experiences with experimenting with some of these things, because you can an absolutely phenomenal job. I guess one thing to mention actually is, where can people find these things? Like, what's on whose website?
Yeah, so the bundles with all of the Cras materia and keys, double unlock powder, and Saint Expedite shackles are going to be available through Kitchen Toad. We're doing an exclusive bundle for everything, so every bundle is going to come with a chaplet, a candle, the shackles, and the double fast unlock. I will be selling some other things pertaining to Saint Expedite that I release every year, and I know that Key will be selling a bunch of his oils and his nutmeg talismans and some other things over on the With Cunning and Command website.
Yeah, just having the refreshed nutmeg talismans, the refreshed oils that have received, an additional year of work to them, all that good stuff.
I'm really excited to be able to provide this bundle through Kitchen Toad. I'm going to be doing so much magic to make sure that they arrive safely and that they arrive quickly to everyone's doors, especially considering the contents. We don't want things like lagging behind in Jamaica, New York again. Always Jamaica, New York.
It's always Jamaica, New York. I'm picturing you as, like, instead of being sat upon the toadstool, you're like running a little hamster wheel. Just powering these ship packages to get to their destinations. Well, I mean, like I said, the cantrip will be in place. It'll be good to go. It's not going to like literally curse the people who buy them. It's going to empower them. But I do think it's there's something very, very funny about it all, and I'm glad we figured it out.
Definitely, yeah. We'll also be doing a lot to make sure that things get where they need to go in time. There's a whole setup. Place, so.
I dab everything that I send out with Expedite oil, just in case.
Same.
Yeah, literally when I ship things to friends, or or times that I've sold charms and so on, it's always gets the little dab.
Gotta go fast.
I
watched Sonic once as a 4-year-old and it changed my life.
I can tell. I can tell the way you dress.
Can you tell it was the one where they played the drums and shit?
Yeah. Listen, I love me some oversized shorts. Let's go. Oh, so in the show notes for the patrons, I'll include a bunch of really good resources and notes on books and articles and so on for more information about this wonderful saint that has captivated all our hearts. But I do just want to point out that one of the top articles that shows up when you're looking into Saint Expedite related tourism, or kind of information about him, kind of more generally from a Catholic perspective, or just kind of a curiosity about him as a folk saint, is one that's called I visited a shrine for the patient saint of procrastinators, and it's on a website called fastcompany.com. Like Zoom. I literally just am going through this website now, and I'm like, because I've seen this article before, but I'm like, oh, it's like a news website. That's cool. But it's called Fast Company. God bless you. If any of your people are listening to our episode for whatever reason, we're fans of this particular article. It's got some great shrine pics.
No, it has some beautiful photos for sure. I especially love Expedite all in white.
Yeah. It's pretty. Yeah, with that pink backdrop. Yeah, it's gorgeous. Well, all right, gentlemen. Shall we? We have some Akashic records. Because for our Sigma Saint, because the grind never stops. And surprisingly, I say that, but none of these are funk. None of these are Key's like workout playlist when he goes to pump massive iron. Well, we got so for me, it's Right Here, Right Now by Fatboy Slim, because that is literally the motto of the man. And also I'm Your Hoochie Coochie Man by Muddy Waters, one of my favorite songs that I think just captures some of the great things you can get up to with him.
Classic. I've got a couple on there as well. I chose Goofer Dust Swing by Lowell Johnson because the only spirit I've ever made Goofer Dust with was Saint Expedite.
Nice.
Don't cross me, you know. And then I've also got the Dixie Drugstore down on Missouri Street because it's an absolute classic. It evokes all of the vibes to me of going out, collecting foot track dirts and picking up conjure oils.
Oh my God, that's another thing you can do, right? Is like use some of this stuff to get people to relinquish their tag locks.
Exactly, yeah.
Immediately, today.
Release them,
unhand them. Key, do you got any tracks for us?
I got the Sonic the Hedgehog OST. Zone.
Oh no.
Oh man.
Cheers. Yeah. Okay, which Sonic character are you? Let's real quick. Mahi?
I'm obviously Tails.
You're always a Tails? Yeah. Okay, that's fair.
Always.
I want to be the egg.
Oh, the Eggman? Okay, gotcha.
I don't think he's a man. I think he's just an egg.
No, I'm pretty sure he's Eggman because he looks like an egg, but he's in his little machines, right?
I don't know. I just know he's an egg.
Okay, great, cool. Key?
I kind of like Knuckles
Because you punch.
Yeah.
I like Knuckles too. Yeah, absolutely. Also, I feel like the Chows, like little chaos orb friends, little teardrop shaped ones, like they're just great. So if I could choose them, I'd be them just because they're like cute as hell.
Which animal morph of them?
Oh, that's a good question. We'll have to figure it out.
I spent so much time on that game as a kid.
Yeah. Like this Cream, like the bunny girl, she always has one around her, right? If you guys, yeah. Amazing. Okay, we gotta add our systems because one of our patrons asked for the last Q&A, our bonus episode was like for the three of us, like which D&D characters would you be, or like what would your class be? And they guessed like witch and druid for me. They guessed thief. Or because of the lockpicking, or Beastmaster because of the dog story in episode 2 for Key. Yeah. And then for Salt, they chose like wizard or monk, to which we also added the two-handed warrior like kind of classes, but and also just like barbarians because he always chooses like the exact like he chooses like the barbarian class that just like swings the sword because he wants to be guts from berserk.
Big sword goes swoosh. That's all you need in life.
Amazing. Okay, well, thank you for your riveting contribution, Key, because of the Sonic the Hedgehog.
Controversial.
Yeah. Amazing. All right, and License to Depart is obviously a prayer to our man. And Mahigan, you read it last time because it was French. Do you want to give this one a shot as well?
Sure.
All right, take it away.
I can prove that I actually speak English.
Oh, wonderful. That will be the first time on our show. Well, one day for like an April Fool's thing, we should all just speak a completely different language because we have quite a few between us.
Oh my God, yeah. We all just speak in a different one.
Yeah, exactly. Because we do understand each other's different ones too. Yeah.
All right. O glorious Saint Expedite, donning the red and gold colors of a Roman centurion, you are the leader of the thundering legions who has traversed continents by foot. You have stepped upon the neck of the crow and have triumphed over the devil's temptation to delay what could be done on that day. I know you by your works, by your miraculous intercession on mine and others' behalfs. I know that you act more quickly than lightning strikes and deliver results before the end of the day. I pray that you will hear my prayer and petition and that you will intercede on my behalf on this very day. Hodie, Hodie, Hodie.